Eric Anderson, a user who played a minor role in the Viand community, known for giving out constructive criticism towards people who takes trolls too seriously. Which I find understandable. Some people do need to simply ignore trolls and move on with their lives. When I first joined YouTube a few years ago, I did not know trolls were meant to be ignored, and my brain decided that I should retaliate back. Luckily, I treated that phase as an experience and moved on. Going back, as some of you may think Eric is definitely one of those nice people that transforms other lives, you are dead wrong. Before we move on, I cannot determine if this user is genuinely stupid or just another troll. Either way, I don't give a shit. Let's dive deep into his behavior in the past, shall we? This phrase is notoriously part of his trait for the people who have known him in the past. Just a quick reminder of what it means. When someone says no offense, it's like to anticipate an outcome that you might either get upset, agitated, or even get your feelings hurt, but not in a mean way. TLDR, it's just a disclaimer before criticism. No matter what, Eric constantly uses this phrase regardless of who he's talking to. In fairness, as the aforementioned meaning behind that phrase, he does say it exactly as it's intended. However, the problem I have with repeated use of catchphrases is that it will potentially lose its impact. Not the phrase itself, but the way Eric uses it in almost every sentences. Here's an example. As you can see in this description, he repeated the phrase around several times in the same message. Honestly, Eric, do you really expect that this advice video is able to convince that person to change? Let alone a blank screen video that lasts 40 seconds? It's like having someone you know repeat the same catchphrase. You'd find it funny a few times. Over time, you'd predict what they are going to say, and eventually, it gets more repetitive than funny. That's my first point. He overuses the phrase. We all know that this is what he's known for, right? Before we dive into the second point, what is constructive criticism, some of you may ask? Constructive criticism is a very helpful feedback tool. It gives you the opportunity of what areas you need to improve on in the future. For example, I love drawing or sketching whatever. Once that piece of art is done, I showcase them to my friends. Majority of them has done art as well in the past. However, regardless of how shit or great it is, they always provide critical feedback such as, it's great, but it lacks perspective. Try and work on your proportions, or try use references as much you can, etc. Without criticism, you definitely would not succeed. As for Eric, in my personal opinion, I feel like he does not provide criticism properly. Instead, he uses it as a weapon constantly towards others. Here are a few examples. Example 1. As you can see, in another alias, he is telling a user to ignore a troll. But, what exactly is being criticized here? Simply saying he's just a troll, ignore him, isn't necessarily going to help the user, or reader to ignore it, nor it doesn't explain of what the troll actually did wrong. When you provide criticism, you need to at least elaborate the reason behind it. It isn't always an obligation, however, because it can vary a lot depending on the context. Elaborating can be beneficial for the readers to understand, as they are going to have a clearer idea, create a clearer picture, and it'll likely be more memorable. Otherwise, what that point says, you're giving them instructions, rather than backquote criticism. Just to add a note, there will be a bunch of alts shown, and I'll not make that as its own point as it's just painfully obvious, and there would be just too many to uncover. Example 2. In another alias, you probably know what I'm going to say. You dumb. Saying those are not words is just factually wrong on multiple levels. Just because they spoke in another language, it doesn't mean it's meaningless. Chinese is clearly a real language, and oh wait, there are loads of dialects that comes with it. I bet you'd never heard of that before. The fact you actually said that statement is absolutely bizarre, and it's more like trying to make yourself look edgy. Translating tools exists for a reason. Why couldn't you use your brain in the first place? When you state a dismissal claim, you should definitely provide evidence. Again, it isn't an obligation, but however, since this is Van Orgonamet logic, you must provide proof, otherwise people won't believe you. TLDR, if you made a dismissal claim, provide proof or just admit you're a loser. Example 3. Okay. What the fuck is this? This is even worse than the other two I've covered. First of all, again, why exactly isn't he not handling criticism? Only saying he blocked Eric Anderson because he was criticizing him is still unhelpful to the readers because you know what's missing. Failed to elaborate what the criticism said yet again, so therefore this whole expose doesn't make any sense. And also, Eric, could you at least give yourself 2 hints of why he actually blocked you? Maybe, just maybe, figure what else is literally going on in that video. At this point, this is more of trying to paint yourself as the victim, rather than exposing the user who "can't handle criticism." And also, speaking of pedophiles and predators. Just out of curiosity, has anyone heard of these users such as Vidren Frigate, Rainbow107 or Joel Armstrong? If you've been in the Viand community long enough, they are considered as one of the most disgusting degenerates ever. Wait, actually, the entire community itself is already fucked in general, to be honest. Do you think these people are trolls? Here's my honest answer, perhaps they have trolled other people, but that's not the point. The issue is whether "troll" adequately describes the other behavior being alleged. Vidren Frigate made weird questions in Discord about. Well, you can see for yourself in this screenshot. Rainbow107 similarly made a sexual threat towards someone, then even resorting to this video, which I can describe, where he and another user had "intercourse." Seems poorly made, but still disgusting nevertheless. And Joel Armstrong has made loads of questionable messages in Discord. Genuinely, I don't know what this censored part is. Could it be irrelevant? Or could be anything worse? I don't know. Anyways, if you are interested of these commentaries of these users, I'll link each of them in the description. So, why is Eric relevant to these users, you may ask? Well, he is known to willfully defend them in any shape or form as possible. What's worst is that he portrays them as "trolls," and the attempt to downplay it was absolutely shit. Are you trying to tell us that we should ignore these disgusting people because they are just trolls? Do you not realize how stupid you are? Obviously not. In fact, let's go over the differences between a troll and a criminal, shall we? To identify a troll, look at the signs where they can intentionally starts fights, calling you names, post extreme ideas that gets loads of traction, or just impersonate you or someone you know, etc. Bear in mind, this varies a lot as not all trolls act like the same in a similar fashion, but if they tick off some of the boxes, it'll be reasonable that they're trolling. Whereas identifying a criminal is a way different story. To identify a criminal or someone who did something disgusting, it's very tricky to pinpoint, as some can hide their true colors, unless someone has called them out and provided credible evidence. The other signs you definitely need to watch is suspicious or concerning behavior, repeatedly making unwanted sexual comments, making threats, targeting people after they've asked them to stop, sending inappropriate material, attempting to obtain private information, or repeatedly crossing someone's boundaries. Although it isn't a guarantee that someone is a criminal right away, it's really important that you should look at evidence and conclusions before jumping in to make a verdict. So, Eric, do you still think they are trolls now? Or you're just going to still deny and downplay their behavior they've allegedly engaged in, simply because your illogical brain thinks they're trolls? This is exactly why people don't have respect for you and your shitty critic antics. They dismiss you because you're reducing behavior that has allegedly made other people uncomfortable to do nothing more than "trolling." In conclusion, Eric Anderson is a shit critic person. He uses it as a weapon and acts egotistical about it. Some of you may think this commentary video is pointless. Which, maybe it is, to be honest. But however, this is a look from the past, and it's safe to say he has become irrelevant for these past few years, and it's doubtful that he's ever going to return.
Next you'll say,
No offense, but making fun of me proves you can't handle criticism.
No offense, but making fun of me proves you can't handle criticism.